Hey Alan, how are you?
I'm good, Rahul. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much, Alan. Alan, thank you so much to giving me your spacious time for this podcast.
Yeah,
First of all,
yeah, yeah, no
so
problem. And thank you for considering me. I feel important.
it's our pleasure having you. So Alan, my first question is, can you just introduce yourself and just tell us what motivated you to apply for this program?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so my name is Alan Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Malayali from Bangalore.
Okay.
I have a slight background in French. I've had it since school.
Mm-hmm.
And then during my university, I did a degree in hospitality management.
Mm-hmm.
And for my internship semester, I got the chance to do an internship in France. So when I went to France for the first time, I I saw whatever that I learned in school come to life. Like the little words that I knew, whatever I learned back in school, I saw all of that being used in real life. And I felt like that was something very exciting. So then I came back to India after my internship and I decided that I really want to go back there. So that's something that motivated me to take the language more seriously and then, go from
Okay.
there and then eventually apply for the program.
Okay. Alan, I have a question. Like out of 9 to 8 podcasts that I have done so far, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
all of them they were girls, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
you are the first like male candidate, the boy
Mm-hmm.
who applied for the assistant program and done it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
second year also you are so you are going to apply, like you have selected and you are going to do for this year as well. So what do you think, what is the reason behind it, the principal reason behind it, where there's very few boys who apply for this program than a girls? I would say like only 5% or 10% of this whole participants where
Mm-hmm.
the boy apply for this program rather than the majority of girls
Yeah, that is true. Out of all the candidates, there are only about 10% maybe who are boys. Out of 200 candidates, I think only maybe 20 or 30, I guess, are boys. And the reason why I think that is probably because in general, when it comes to language learning as a separate thing, not just in
Mhm.
school, as a language learning as a serious separate thing, generally boys don't continue that. Even when I've
Mhm.
seen in Alliance Française, when I went for classes at Alliance Française, it was usually girls who were more, who would participate more in the class. And I
Mhm.
think that's just a general trend when it comes to boys and girls. I think there are very few boys who take this area very seriously. And I think that's just how people work. I don't think it has anything to do with
Mhm.
the work environment or anything like that. I think it's just personal interest when it comes to language learning. In general, I think girls tend to be more interested in taking language learning to the next level, and very few boys actually continue with it.
Continue with it. So do you think
Yeah.
the salary also matter, and it is also a principal reason for boys who's not applying for this program, maybe? Do you think?
Yeah, possibly. I think that also comes before the program itself. I think a lot of boys might be questioned as to
Mm-hmm.
why do you want to learn this language? How will it benefit you? Will you get
Mm-hmm.
a good job? Will this actually help you get a good job, a well-paying
Mm-hmm.
job? And I think those questions are not asked as much when it comes to a girl who's
Yeah.
who's studying a language. So maybe that's why that discourages boys to take it up seriously because it requires a lot of effort to actually learn a language. So maybe the questions regarding future prospects and salaries are a reason why boys tend to just stop language learning. Maybe.
Okay. So being a English language assistant in France, how did you prepare for your role?
Okay. So personally, I did not really prepare when it comes to teaching itself,
Mm.
but there was a lot of mental preparation that I had to go through before I left.
Such
So I
as.
had to, yeah, so I had to tell myself that I had to really accept the fact that I'm going to a place far away from what I'm comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to know anybody there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, the language is going to be completely different. The culture is going to be completely different. If at all I'm in a situation where I need help, I'm going to have to manage all of that on my own. So I had to mentally prepare and tell myself that this is going to be a real thing. This is real. It's going to happen. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to, go look at past assistants, see how their experience was, so that I have to be ready for, I don't know what to expect because everything is new. So in
Mm-hmm.
that sense, I had a lot of mental preparation. Um, but yeah, it's majorly mental preparation that I went through. I didn't really look into teaching techniques and all of that because that is important. I wouldn't advise against it. If you feel like you need to look at teaching techniques and stuff like that, it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
But me personally, I think I was able to handle it without all of that. So I just went with
Mhm.
the mental preparation as my focus.
Okay. So can you please describe a typical day as a English language assistant?
Yeah. So all assistants, no matter where you're from, India, America,
Mm.
all assistants work 12 hours a week, and that's a
Yeah.
fixed thing in every contract. So for me, the timetable that the school gave me was I would work only 3 days a week. I worked
Mm.
on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And I think it was 5 hours, 4 hours, and 4 hours or something like that to make up for the 12.
Yeah.
So what I would do was my earliest class was at 9 a.m. I
Mm-hmm.
would wake up. I had cereal in my flat. I stayed in an apartment with one flatmate. I
Mm-hmm.
would eat cereal every single day. I'm just lazy to cook in the morning and all of that, so I would just eat cereal every single day. Get ready, and my school was not far away, so I could just walk.
Yep.
So I
Okay.
would get ready, eat cereal, just walk to school. And then depending on the timetable, I would finish my classes, 1 hour classes. At 12, we had our lunch break from 12 to 1:30. And I would eat at the school canteen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But there were some assistants who would go back and then eat home
Then
food.
it,
But
yeah.
for me, the canteen was convenient. So I would just eat at the canteen. And then post lunch, I would have a few more hours of class. I
Mm-hmm.
would finish that and then come back home. Again, it was just a 5 minute walk, come back home. And then I would think about dinner because dinner I had to manage on my own. So
Yeah.
sometimes I would cook, go grocery, do some grocery shopping, plan for the next day, plan my classes for the next day, and then, yeah, go to bed. My work days were like that. Weekends, it was different. Sometimes I would go out. Sometimes I would meet up with other assistants,
Mm-hmm.
maybe do a short trip here and there, or just stay in the flat. Yeah, that's
Okay.
how I would.
Okay. So do you think your hospitality experience, which you have learned from your hotel management course,
Mhm.
so it applied, it helped you to, survive this journey, or it help you to make this program more productive for you?
Yes, I would say it has helped because hospitality management involves communication, learning to
Yeah.
communicate.
And I must say,
So
you really have a good communication skills.
thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, when hospitality management involves a lot of communication, learning how to be an effective
Hmm.
speaker, learning how to
Yeah.
communicate effectively. So I think when it comes to handling a class where you're speaking a different language,
Hmm.
there is a skill when it comes to getting non-native English speakers to understand what you're saying. So I think that whole communication class that I had in university
Hmm.
has applied in real life when it comes to me communicating to the students. So yeah,
Hmm.
I would say in a way it has played a role.
So, as you just mentioned about the accents and the communications, okay.
Hmm.
So, like we are the Indians and we have the different
Hmm.
accents, English accents,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
the Americans and the UK, they also have the different accents. So, do you think
Hmm.
being Indian, you have
Hmm.
faced some challenges while teaching to French students and French kids?
Okay, that's a very good question because it's very important. Me personally, I haven't faced any issues with
Mhm.
an accent problem, but I've heard of other assistants who've had some complaints about a very thick Indian accent. Now, the problem is not that they have an Indian accent. The problem is that the students, they are used to listening to an American or a British accent.
Okay.
So when they have spent hours and hours in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
learning English, but they have exposure only to the American accent or the British accent. So when
Mm-hmm.
someone with an Indian accent comes into the classroom, they have a hard time understanding because they're not used to it. So the problem is not that you have an accent, it's just that the students don't have exposure to different accents.
Mm.
And I think if you have an accent, if you have a very thick Indian accent, it's still okay because in a way you're telling the students that English is diverse. English comes in different accents. English is
True.
not just an American accent or a British accent. The Indian accent is a valid form of English. So you may face some challenges where the students are finding it difficult to understand you because of your accent, but that doesn't mean that your accent is the problem. It's just that the students don't have this exposure, and you need to kind of teach them that English is like this. You have people with different accents in English, and that's just
Okay.
how it works.
And what kind of exercises or maybe what kind of strategies that we can implement while
Mhm.
teaching, while while strict to this English accent.
Okay. So what I would say is you could put up a bunch of words,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can have them listen to the same word being pronounced in different accents. And you
Okay.
will see that, and you can also tell them that it's even in America, there is no standard American accent. Even in America, they have different English accents.
Yeah.
Like in New York, they speak differently. In Texas, they speak differently. So I think you just have the students, because they don't know this. They think that English is American or British. They don't know that even in the UK, they have so many different accents. So I
Yeah.
think you have to help them with giving them that exposure. So you show them a word like, for example, potato,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know how some people would say potato or whatever. So you show
Yeah.
them different accents, tomato, tomato. You just show them, you give them that little bit of exposure and tell them that English
Mm.
has so many different forms. It's not just standard American, standard British. It's much more diverse.
Okay. Okay. So yes. So maybe so how do you approach teaching English to French students? So maybe
Mhm.
you can share your some techniques and method and methodology
Yeah.
to improve their English.
Okay. So, what I would do when I was in the classroom is I would try to stay away from a very textbook method.
Mm.
I don't like to be very textbook. I prefer to have real conversations with them. Okay. And I would always, always, always have a presentation up. I wouldn't just stand there and speak because that can be boring. Because first of
Yeah.
all, the students are concentrating because I'm speaking a different language that they are not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I would always use visuals. I would use videos or photos,
mm-hmm.
and the topics that I would deal with, they would be something that we can just have a conversation about. I wouldn't go very textbook. So I would bring up food, or I would bring up a festival, and then I would
Mm-hmm.
ask them a lot of questions. I would say, what do
Yeah.
you think about this? And just have a conversation, because I feel like this conversation type of class is interactive and they're more comfortable. If I just go on explaining something, they get bored, and if it's too deep, they get bored, and they're not very involved. So I would just focus on having a real conversation with them, like they're a real person, I'm a real person. Let's just speak.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So maybe like do you use some technical tools while teaching or maybe some other tools, apart from Microsoft presentation?
Mhm. So I majorly used presentations.
Mm-hmm.
I know some assistants use Canva to make it a little more, the visuals are better on Canva. So
Yeah.
some assistants use Canva, but I just use normal presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I would focus more on the conversation part. So the presentation would just be there so that they have something to see. It's much better
Mm.
when they have something to see. So I would use presentations, and in the staff room, we had access to the printers. So sometimes during activities, I would print out things that I needed to give to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I would just use the printers in the staff rooms. I would use the projector for power presentations, and I would open YouTube if I had any videos to show them. I would use all of that, yeah, but nothing apart from that. I don't think so.
Okay. Can you share an experience where you felt you made a significant impact on your students'
Hmm.
understanding of English language?
Okay, yeah. This I like this question because when I think of these moments, it makes me happy because I remember very clearly in many classes. So how we would work is we would take one class, we would split them into two groups.
Okay.
I would take one group for 30 minutes while the other group stays with the main teacher. And after
Hmm.
30 minutes, we would switch. I would take that group and this group would go to the main teacher. So I
Oh, this is a.
remember,
Mhm.
yeah, that's how we would function. I would not do the whole class at one shot. We would do half
Okay.
and half.
Okay.
Okay. And so I clearly remember when I finished 30 minutes with one class and it's time to switch. When
Hmm.
those students come and these students are leaving, they would tell the other students that they really enjoyed the class. They would be like, "Okay, ho gaya." And then,
Okay.
so that when I would hear them say that to the other students, and I feel like that seems like a positive impact. And many times when the other group comes and knocks on the door, these students would be like, "No, already,
Déjà
c'est déjà
30
l'heure,
minutes.
déjà 30 minutes." No? Then yeah, so it would be really, ça fait plaisir. Like I really feel good when they don't want to leave the class. So I think that tells me that they did have a positive,
Okay.
impression.
So, have you ever faced when your thought process and your PR or maybe your, the other English teacher thought process, they are not matched?
Mhm.
Is it? It
Mhm.
happens usually time to time, and if yes, how you manage that time?
Okay. For me, fortunately, my other colleagues, the English teachers, they were not very strict about what content they want me to deal with. They gave me the liberty to do whatever I want. There was
Okay.
one colleague who would sometimes tell me, "Can you focus on this topic for next week or for the next class? Because
Hmm.
we're doing this in my class. Maybe you can, whatever content you're teaching, maybe you can do an activity that's somewhat related to this." So that's how she would communicate what she expects from me.
Hmm.
And sometimes, yes, it does get difficult because she might be talking about a topic that's a little hard to link with Indian culture or whatever. Like she was talking about how you would describe a person. Like, for example, she was teaching blue eyes and blonde hair, but that
Hmm.
doesn't exist in Indian culture. I can't say. She said maybe you can do an activity where you show members of your family and have them describe them. Say, oh, your mother has blonde hair or blue eyes, but in Indian culture, there is no blue
Yeah.
eyes and blonde hair. So
Yeah.
I told her, I said, I can't really do that because it doesn't exist in India. We don't have blonde hair and blue eyes. So she said, okay, then maybe instead of your family, you can do famous people that you like, maybe actors that you like. So that works better. In a way, it's linked to me because these are actors that I like.
Mhm.
And then they are also practicing their vocabulary of blue eyes and blonde hair and whatever, tall, short, beard, all that. So
Okay.
sometimes, yeah, you just have to communicate with the other teachers.
Okay. So as you are from India and like here in France, you also saw, the French education practices in the system. So
Mhm.
which one do you prefer the most, the Indian one and the French one, and why? There are some pros and cons for
Mhm.
every education system.
Mhm.
So which one for you is the best for an individual, for a student maybe?
Mm. I think the Indian system is better
Okay. How?
because because what I've noticed is in the French system,
Mm-hmm.
the marks that they get, they don't really matter too much. Even if you
Oh.
don't have good marks, you will move to the next year. Like
Oh.
I worked in a college.
Mm-hmm.
So college involves sixième, cinquième, quatrième, troisième, 4 years. In
Mm-hmm.
the CGM, even if you don't have good marks, you will still go to the next level,
Thank
cinquième.
you. Thank you.
And then yeah, cinquième, quatrième, troisième. From the CGM to the troisième, you can go without studying or doing anything.
Oh.
Because it's all on your parents to be, to
Mm-hmm.
actually tell you that you need to do well. The school is not going to fail you. But then there's a consequence. Later, you will pass the baccalaureate in the lycée,
Yeah.
or even after college, you have le brevet, the exam. So if you don't do well in that, you won't get accepted into a lycée. But then it's really weird because throughout the 4 years in the college, you're not
Mhm.
studying anything, and then you fail your brevet. So I feel like the
So
system
yeah,
is a little, it doesn't work. But in India, your marks really matter. If you don't do
yeah,
well,
it
you
does.
could repeat the year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it
So I
does.
don't get this thing because I had a student in the Quasian who did not know how to write. He just didn't want to know. Yeah. He did not want to write. So he never learned how to write. He didn't have any sickness. I spoke to the teachers. They said, no, it's just that he doesn't want to and his parents don't mind. So he just doesn't write. So,
It's quite weird, but yeah,
yeah. So
we
I
have to.
think the Indian system is a bit more strict and it more serious. Students are a little more serious about marks.
Mm. So, what has been your most memorable moment so far in this program?
For me, I'm very grateful to say that there is no one memorable moment. I think the
Mm-hmm.
entire time I was there has been majorly ups.
Mm-hmm.
But don't be deceived because it's not the case with every assistant. A lot of assistants did
Mm-hmm.
have problems, but not me. For me, most of the time it was just ups. Everything from the work environment to the students,
Mm-hmm.
the colleagues, my time, the free time I had, how much I could travel, everything has just been up. Of course, in the middle, I was a little sick, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
but that's normal. I mean, that
Yeah.
happens. So yeah, overall, the whole program for me has been quite a positive experience.
Okay. So, your teachers, they were quite cooperative with you, or not?
Yeah, they were actually. They gave me the liberty to do anything in the classroom. They did not really. So I worked with four colleagues. So there were four English teachers in the school. I worked with all four of them.
Mm-hmm.
Only one of them would tell me what she expects. She would say, "Can you do this for next class? Can you do this for next class?"
Mm-hmm.
The other three, they didn't mind. They said, "You do anything you want," because they saw that the students were quite happy with the classes. So they said, "It's fine. You do anything." And if at all I needed to be absent for some day, like if I had a formation somewhere,
Yeah.
if I had like a training session and it was a little far away, I would just send them a text on WhatsApp saying, I'm not sure if I'll make it for the afternoon class. And they would say, it's completely fine. We understand that you're using public transport. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
make it, it's okay. So they would, yeah, they were very understanding and yeah, there were no problems. It was good.
Okay. So, what support does the program provide to help you to living in France?
Okay. The program, they do offer a lot of support from India itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
before the assistants leave to France, they have a common orientation session that happens in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
So we all go there and they have like a whole day an orientation
Training.
where they kind of yeah they train you they tell you what to expect, what to
Mm-hmm.
do if you're sick, where to go, so they
Yeah,
give
yeah.
you like proper information, and then, of course, you have your PR who is supposed to help you.
Mm-hmm.
That's again situational. Some PRs are not good, some PRs are good. That depends. But you do have someone to contact. And even
Mm-hmm.
if your PR is not helpful, a lot of assistants can write to the rectorat, the
Yeah.
person who works at the academy. So that's also an option. And then once you go to France, every assistant has 3 training sessions. So yeah, so you do 3 trips to somewhere close to the academy, and they train you for I think it's 3 hour sessions. They tell you again, what if a student does this, how you can respond. They kind of train you. They give you some printouts with information, stuff that can help you in a classroom. Because we're not professional teachers, we're just individuals. So they do train you.
Individuals.
They do train you in India as well as in France. So there is a fair amount of support.
Mm. So, as you have already done a most recognized, one of the most recognized degree, hotel management, okay, which
Mm-hmm.
I was also willing to do it
Mm-hmm.
at my time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so how do you see your experience as an English language assistant
Mm-hmm.
influencing your career and studies, or maybe career or studies, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So again, now that I've done this English language assistance program,
Mm-hmm.
my main focus or my career path right now is looking like I want to stay somewhere in this area, not necessarily as a teacher in a school, but I'm also looking at language training for adults. If I
Mm,
were to work in a company where, in a French company, for example, where they need someone who can train the staff in English,
mm,
I could
yeah.
help them with their English. And again, if it's customer service, I have a background in hospitality management, which involves communication, how to
Mm,
communicate, what to say, what not to say, what sounds rude, what sounds, hospitable. So I
mhm.
can use that to my advantage and maybe even potentially become a language trainer. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at those areas for my career.
Career. So we can say this program helped you a lot to elevate or maybe level up your career. Maybe you can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it did add a lot of value to my profile. Yeah, I would
Mm.
say so.
Okay. So maybe this and the next question that am willing to ask. What are
Mhm.
some misconceptions about the program you would like to clarify?
Okay.
There are
Uh,
so much of stereotype and so much misconception that people made time to time each and every year, and in the group as well, people talked a lot about so many things which is not required. But
okay.
yeah, so what's your thought about it?
A lot of misconceptions about the program.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I would like to say, which a lot of people don't know, is when it comes to selecting the region where you're going to work,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always the city. For example, you see Académie de Paris, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean you'll be in Paris. That's something that people
Mm.
don't know because
Oh.
Académie de Paris means it's the board. It's like the whole area. It's huge.
Mm.
So you could be
Huge.
somewhere in the corner, which is not really Paris. Like for example, I'm in Académie de Créteil, which is right next to Paris, but the school that I'm in is
Mm-hmm.
is 1.5 hour outside, but it belongs
Of
to the same
Paris.
academy. So that's something which a lot of assistants don't know. They apply thinking, okay, Académie
Mm.
de Grenoble. And they
Yeah.
think that they'll be in Grenoble, but not
No,
necessarily.
no
Sometimes the
necessarily.
school will be like 1 hour from Grenoble in a small town. So I think
Mm.
that's something people should know because it can be demotivating. You can feel a little disappointed when you see that your school is like, somewhere far away in a small town. So
Yeah.
that's something that the program probably doesn't make clear, which you discover once you apply and you understand
Mm-hmm.
how academies are. And then the thing with the salary, a lot of people say that the salary is not enough, but I think it's fair. In
Okay.
general, in general, the salary, okay, is not much, but when you compare it with how much work you are doing, I think it's very fair. You are able to do a lot of things with that money. It's possible.
Mm. Okay. So yeah. So maybe how like okay. So I saw you have a lot to say about this
Mm-hmm,
program. So if
mm-hmm,
I see your academic area,
mm-hmm,
so how do you plan your lessons before
mm-hmm.
before entering into the class, and how much time does it take normally? Like 1 hour, one and a
Okay.
half hour? Because
Mm-hmm,
being a French tutor, French teacher, it
mm-hmm,
take like still till now, uh, it take me around 1 hour, at least 1 hour to prepare,
mm-hmm,
my whole class, like how
mm-hmm,
will I proceed and all. So being an
mm-hmm,
English language assistant, how like how
mm-hmm.
much time does it take to prepare your lessons?
Okay. Well, for me, since I was working with uh, groups for 30 minutes, my
Mm-hmm.
classes were only 30 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so every 30 minutes we would switch, right?
Hmm.
So I think I would take about 1 hour minimum to prepare the material. And
Okay.
what I would do is I would not stick to one topic per class. I would have at least 2 or 3 topics because
Oh,
what I've noticed is sometimes a
mm,
particular topic might be really boring for some
yeah,
students.
true.
So, but the same topic in another class would be interesting for some other students. So
Yeah.
that's why I would always keep maybe 2 or 3 topics in each plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because if at all topic one is boring in this class, I would kind of go over that topic a little quicker and see if they are interested in the next topic. Otherwise, if they're bored the whole class, it feels like one class wasted. So I would
Mm-hmm.
have at least three topics. If topic one is boring, if I'm able to see their faces and they're not very interested in this topic, I would speed through it and go to topic two. And then in another class, if they're interested in topic one, I would, elaborate more on topic one and then slowly get to topic two. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I would generally plan my lessons. And minimum 1 hour I would take to prepare the content, sometimes even two. And if it's a topic that I personally like myself, I would just sit and have fun and spend even 3 hours just making the presentation. It depends. But yeah, minimum I would say 1 hour, around 1 hour.
Around 1 hour. Okay.
Yeah.
That's also a great thing, I would say. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so if we see, okay, so let's see. It's not a language assessment program. Okay, it's a culture
Mm-hmm.
exchange program. If we take in that aspects, okay. So, how
Mm-hmm.
do you share Indian culture and what have you learned about the French culture so far, thanks to this
Mm-hmm.
program?
Okay. So how I would share the Indian culture with them is with every class, the topics that I would talk about are all
Mm-hmm.
related to India. I would talk about the food that we eat, the festivals that we have, the type of
Mm-hmm.
clothes that we wear, the stereotypes that people generally talk about in
Mm-hmm.
India. I would show them a lot of videos. I would show
Mm-hmm.
them Bollywood songs. I
Okay.
would show them how India is so diverse. It's completely different. Each state, has a different language, different culture, and how it changes from north to south. So every class, I would talk about something related to India. And then how I learned about the French culture is I would always ask the students. I would, for example, in especially, in India, sometimes we eat on a leaf, especially I think it's
Banana
a
leaves.
South Indian thing. Yeah, banana leaf,
Yeah.
especially in Kerala, we eat on a
Banana.
banana leaf.
Yeah.
So I would show them a picture of a banana leaf, and I would say, "Do you know what this is? Do you know the word for this in English?" And then I would tell them how we eat on a leaf, and then I would
Mm.
ask them, "How do you eat at home? Do you ever eat with your hands?" They would say, "No, it's weird." And then I would say, "But you eat pizza with your hands." They say,
Yeah.
"Yeah, but it depends." And
Aí
then
ça
so that's a,
dépend.
ça
Yeah.
dépend. Ouais, pas tout le temps, mais ça dépend. So yeah, we would talk about. I would just have these conversations with the students, and then sometimes in the school, the teachers would have a soirée. So I
Mm.
would go. For example, we had this raclette. They had this raclette
Oh
thing.
yeah, yeah.
So they invited me. They said, "Have you ever had raclette?" And I said, "I don't even know what that is." So they said,
Okay.
"Okay, you should come and you should." So then, yeah. So like that, I would do these little events with them, and then
Mm.
that way I would see what they like, what they appreciate, how they do things, how they celebrate. So yeah, interactions with students and colleagues, I would say, is how I kind of
Okay.
got
Change
into
your culture.
learning about
Yeah.
their culture. Yeah.
So yeah, you are more into in student side, like you literally
Mm-hmm.
saw your students from like I would say avec très proche, okay,
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
near. So how do you measure their progress?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Okay.
in learning English, like is there any metrics,
Mm-hmm.
your personal metrics? Is there any
Mm-hmm.
particular points, or maybe there are particular games, or maybe how do
Mm-hmm.
you measure,
Mm-hmm.
quantify maybe the progress of your
Mm-hmm.
students?
Okay. Well, one thing is, as an English language assistant, you don't to you don't have to evaluate their progress. It's not really our job to do so. But it's always nice to see if they are really understanding, if they are really learning. But it's not your job. It's not really your task to evaluate and see how much they're progressing. But what I used to do to see if they are actually retaining what they learn is sometimes I would repeat a word that I taught them
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Like for example, when I taught them about the word leaf, banana leaf.
Mm-hmm.
On another day, I might talk about weddings, and I might say, "Do you see what they're eating on? Do you remember what that word was?" And
Oh,
I
interconnection.
can see them. Yeah, I would try to
Mm-hmm.
connect previous lessons with whatever else I'm talking about, and see if they are able to remember. And some of them would remember that I told them, but they would have forgotten the word.
Oh.
So yeah, so that way I would just bring back old things that I spoke about in previous classes, and then
Mm-hmm.
see if they still remember, or even
Mm-hmm.
if it's just a concept. Like if I would have spoken about Holi, and then maybe later, if I show them a video about Holi, I'll ask them, if you remember this festival, what is it? And
Mm-hmm.
then they would tell me, yeah, you said it was this, it was that. So I would just bring back old things into the present day's class.
Okay. So, the second last question, what are your plans after completing this program?
Okay. Well, my first contract is done, and you already know that I've
Mm-hmm.
applied for the second one, and
Second
I've
one.
I've been accepted for the second one. So
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, the plan is to go back,
Mm-hmm.
continue the second contract in the same school,
Mm-hmm.
and post that, I am looking into language teaching, language training.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to eventually continue in France because I really like the culture. I really like the place. I would like to continue in France.
Mm-hmm.
If not, even in India, I would work in the same field. I would work with languages because I feel like my English communication and my French thing, my knowledge of French, I shouldn't, let that go. I should
Yeah.
use it as my uh, as how do I say it, my asset.
Yeah,
So I want to
honestly,
use.
I must admit it. You really have
Mhm.
a good communication skills, and you should continue
Okay.
with that. It's my personal advice, honestly.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. So whether in France or in India, I'm looking
Mhm.
into the same areas, but I would like to continue in France. Maybe find a job, maybe
Mm.
as a language trainer.
Okay. So, what kind of advice, one or two advice you want to give to upcoming assistants?
Okay. So upcoming assistants, I would say you have to really accept the fact that things are going to be different. Things are going to be very different. You're not going to
Mhm.
be with your same people. You're not going to have friends or family close by. You have to really come out of your comfort zone because everything changes. The place changes, the people change, the language changes, the food changes, the culture changes. Everything is new. So even the way they think, their mentality changes, everything is new. So you cannot expect to gel with them the same way you would gel with someone in India. Okay.
Mm,
And it depends. Different personalities work differently. Some people don't get along very well, some people do, but you have to understand that the way you connect, the rapport that you have, the way you gel with your colleagues, it's going to be different, and you have to be a little open because they're not Indian and you're not
yeah.
French. There is going to be a cultural difference. You have to learn to just adapt and gel with this new culture, and you have to accept the fact that it's probably outside your comfort zone, but you got to do it. It's reality.
Okay. So yeah, so thank you so much, Alan, for your precious time. Honestly, again,
Yeah.
so let's wrap up this podcast. And yeah, thank you so much. And can we mention your email address into the description box in any case if some other assistants want to get some more information about related to your academy or maybe related to your
Hmm.
experience that you have
Hmm.
done so far. So guys, thank you so much. I will mention your email address. If you have any doubt, you can
Yeah.
ask directly to Alan. Okay, thank you, Alan. Again, I am just repeating thanks and thanks and thanks. So yeah, so thank you so much. See you
Of
again.
course. Yeah. And
Okay,
thank you for having me.
thank
Okay.
you.